Hello, 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 everyone. I am your host for this cast, Roadhawk. You can call me Roadyhawk. Some people call me that. Some people call me Road. Whatever you are most comfortable with. But we are going to be breaking down, doing a reaction of the Pokemon Day presents that we had just today on the 27th of February. Now, I know there's a lot to talk about this cast, definitely with some big reveals, and I think some perplexing ideas. But overall, I just want to say hello, welcome you to the cast, and I want to start off. Fitzy, would you be willing to let us know who you are, what you do for Bulba Garden, and something you are excited about that you're currently working on, and then I'll have a icebreaker for you.
Uh, hey, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, just checking. I had muted myself on my side. Hey guys, I'm Fitzy. I am part of Bulba Garden's social media team. I help run our metaverse side of things, Facebook and Instagram. And the thing I'm excited about is my birthday's on Sunday, and I'm going to a Final Fantasy concert to celebrate.
That is amazing. I'm a huge fan of Final Fantasy as well. Happy birthday. And just so I can know and the audience can know, what is your favorite Paradox Pokemon?
Does Meridon count?
I would have to say yes to that. Yeah.
Then I'd have to go. I'd have to go with Meridon. When the games came out, I picked Violet because of Meridon, and I still love it.
And then Abby, what would you, or Pixels, what would you like to introduce us with? What are you working on? And what is one thing you're excited about on Bulba Garden?
Yeah, so I'm Abby. Most of the time you can find me in our Discord. I'm one of our mods there, and then I'm also live on this very Twitch channel every Sunday. I am currently working on a couple things that I'm very excited about, but cannot share quite yet. So when I can, I will do that. But yeah, just in terms of Bulba, you might be able to tell from my avatar, but I'm currently working on an Ice Cube solo run in Shield on stream, which has been a lot of fun, and I hope to continue that. But yeah, I think that's it.
And then what is your favorite Paradox Pokemon?
I am a huge fan of Iron Valiant. That was I one of my first shinies in that game. Just I wanted to use it as like my main false swiper and that kind of thing for catching. Really love its design. It being one of the more interesting future paradoxes, being that fusion between Gardevoir and Gallade was really well done, and I'm a big fan.
And then, just to give my 2 cents, I have always been a big fan of Donphan. I feel like Iron Tusks is really cool, but I have to say one of my all-time favorite Pokemon designs is Slitherwing. I love that little derpy dude, and I hope to use him in a playthrough at some point. So, I just wanted to really quickly highlight what we got right in our previous cast and what we got close with. A couple things that I feel like we were a bit off. So, I know from Pokemon Masters side, they have announced that we are getting a 4.5 year anniversary. Silver, we're getting Gita. And there's a couple other things that are on the way. I can't actually remember fully right now, but I do know that we mentioned Gita as a possible 4.5 year anniversary. I know a lot of people were probably a little bit awkward on that reveal, especially revealing that. On top of that, one of the other things that I have to give a shout out to Wyndon Calling. It may have been serious, it may have been a joke post, but the whole Galar Darkest Day scenario, I feel like, is weirdly spot on with some of what we might get with some of the new reveals in this. Additionally, what I also wanted to highlight is the fact that we were weirdly close to getting our either did or did not get Raikou on Pokemon Sleep. I think we had a conversation around various legendaries and Johto. All of that was pretty darn close, if not dead on. But one of the things I do want to dive into really quickly is just the sheer kind of confusion around this Pokemon Day Presents. I know we have a variety of topics, and we've talked about this a little bit off the cast. But as mentioned by many people, this seemed to be an pseudo celebration of Johto in a variety of medium in mobile games primarily. And I would love to open this up to either Abby or Fitzy, whoever wants to go first, and get your kind of interpretation of this pseudo celebration of Johto without an official game.
You can go ahead, Abby.
Yeah,
if you have thoughts.
I'll hop in here. Yeah, I was one of the people that was very adamant that this was going to be a Johto game that was revealed today. I think one of the other things that was, heavily talked about was something involving Unova. I thought, that doesn't feel quite right at this point, but like Johto felt very correct. Kitakami in the Scarlet and Violet DLC was like not directly paralleling Johto, but it had a lot of references there as well. And then all of the kind of imagery within the Presents presentation itself, I think honestly a lot of the point of that was to kind of be a misdirect. I think they kind of knew what they were doing there and were like, okay, well, a Johto thing would be a very reasonable thing for us to announce. So if we kind of make it seem like that's what we're going to announce by having it in the presentation, we can get an even bigger kind of surprise reaction out of the actual reveal, especially given that it had not been leaked, unlike a lot of other things.
Yeah, I think that's completely valid. It definitely felt, in my opinion, like a very Johto-centric thing. And kind of I have a follow-up question for you on that. With the various reveals from Raikou and Pokemon Sleep, the reveal of Champion Silver, and other Johto elements, Abby, what do you feel like really caught you off guard the most with the Johto themed reveals?
I must say, I was pretty surprised to see the beasts as the first legendaries in Sleep. I think legendaries coming to Sleep made a lot of sense, but the beasts being the first ones that they brought was an interesting decision. I think like that almost feels too like planned out too far to be like a deliberate misdirect thing, but then I'm a little curious why it would be them in the first place. I'm still not totally sure like what their thought process was there, but that was very interesting. Then also I was especially surprised just to see like the unknown as kind of this semi-major part of the presentation in the introduction and that lead up to the Legends trailer. Like Unknown is a Pokemon that is not referenced very often. So it was interesting to have it be this kind of more important part of it, especially if we weren't actually referencing Johto in the
And
main reveal.
I feel like part of it, going off of comments that this seemed to be an intentional misdirect, I will add that I think that the mentality of using the unknown might have been a little bit of a nod from the Pokemon developers, especially because Unknown being such a Johto-centric Pokemon that is used for a wide variety of things. Do you feel like you agree on that, Abby?
I think that is fair. I also think part of it is I think they're also separately doing kind of a celebration of Johto. This year is Gold and Silver's 25th anniversary, if I'm not mistaken. So I think that is something they might want to play into with their spin-off releases, and so putting some emphasis on that does make a lot of sense. But we'll have to see how if this kind of Johto wave continues post Pokemon Day, or if it really was kind of a misdirect for this presentation specifically.
Awesome. And then Fitzy, I do want to open up the conversation. Is there anything you feel comfortable talking on what we haven't said or what we have said?
I had a few thoughts. One I had because you asked about anything surprising about the Johto celebration. Was not Silver being included in Masters, but the fact that it's Champion Silver, when Silver never actually becomes champion, which I found to be really interesting. I was like, that wasn't how I expected a new Silver to be in the game. And then I had a little bit of I believe TV Tropes calls it an epileptic trees moment, just a crazy theory. Because you and Abby were talking about the unknown and talking about it is the I think last year was the 25th anniversary of Gold and Silver, and talking about the unknown showing up, all the Johto stuff, and one thing that a lot of people commented on was both times that the unknown showed up in the presents, they were all jumbled up, including the second time where if you unjumble the message, it says "see you," and all I could think to myself, hearing people talk about it, was could that be a clue that a Johto game is coming and they just decided to announce things out of order? And that's a subtle little nod to it. And that's probably just me being a conspiracy theorist, but it was the thought I had.
And I think that definitely has validity. The Pokemon Company has definitely changed things up to how they traditionally do things. I personally feel like in the last several years with the introduction of Legends and as a game series, the idea of like how they expand animated stuff, and I believe that that's like a big thing that the Pokemon Company fans want. We want people and the company themselves to change up what Pokemon has done in the past and give us more originality. Speaking of that, though, what I would love to touch on, I can go to Pokemon Masters in a moment, but I myself am not a big TCG player. But Fitzy, if you want to go first, if you're comfortable, what are your thoughts about the new TCG app, and in particular, working with DNA or even anything else that you find interesting about that?
Well, I gotta be honest with you. It has been quite a while since I have played the Pokemon trading card game. I do believe the last time I actually played with the cards, um, the infamous Charizard card was still just about the most powerful card you could have. So it's been a while for me, but I do play a lot of the TCG game on the Game Boy game, just for nostalgia's sake. But one of the reasons why I've gotten out of trading card games as an adult is simply because it's not economically feasible for me. Um, the idea of this app having the game on the go without having to set up a table or to sit at my computer like with TCG Live, and the idea of getting free cards every day, honestly, is really kind of making me want to get back into the TCG because I do enjoy a trading card game.
I think that's a very valid point. The Pokemon Company has done a lot of things. One of the interesting commentaries I've seen, kind of going off of what you've said, Fitzy, is the mentality of the expense of Pokemon cards. And I can't remember where I saw it, but I've seen a couple posts talking about how people honestly are wondering if this has Marvel Snap vibes potential for them, with the option to get free cards, mobile gaming, all of that. And I wonder if, especially with the TCG, I can't even remember. I know the animated series was Path to the Peak. I'm wondering if they are trying to make these games more accessible, based on the hope of getting people back. Do you have any thoughts on that, Fitzy? Other than
Um,
what you said.
Other than what I said, another thing that I literally just thought of is as everybody chatting and watching here knows, Nintendo and Pokemon have a big problem with scalpers. And we had that issue during lockdown when people started streaming TCG unboxing videos, and then all of a sudden, every store in the world was sold out of the trading card game. I wonder if this push to make the TCG more accessible, more portable, less reliant on the physical merchandise is a way to combat that. Um, the reason I thought of it was just, I think it was like a week ago. There was that thing in the news that they're doing the Pikachu Van Gogh card again because scalpers took so many of them. It's not often that you see Nintendo, Pokemon, or really any video game company put in that extra effort to combat the problem of scalpers. So I wonder if that might play a role in it.
Think that is definitely a possibility. And then, Abby, I want to check in. Do you have any thoughts to add or anything new?
Yeah, I think so. I'm also someone who was never super into the TCG. And I think what Fitzy was saying about really trying to make this more accessible is a good point. Especially just as making it kind of an entryway to the TCG to hopefully maybe funnel people who get into it because of Pocket into kind of the main game where they might be more willing to spend that money. Just because I think like it is very difficult to approach something like a TCG. So having those daily free packs, having the quicker battle style, having it all be on your phone, etc. It's kind of a good way to be like, okay, I've been maybe interested in this. Let me try it in a much more low stakes way and see if I actually will like it and would want to get into the full game. I think that's a lot of their hope with this.
I think that's definitely very true. And I actually messed up. I did not introduce Caps, who is handling all of the Twitch side of things today. So I want to make sure Caps gets some spotlight there. Caps, do you want to say hello to the audience via chat or verbally?
Hey guys, I'm Brody. It's okay. I'm honestly just messing with you. How's it going? Hope you guys are all doing well. Yeah, I'm really vibing with what you guys are saying so far. Agreeing with a lot of your points, especially Fitzy, your point about the TCG and the accessibility of it. Like I'm not typically into Pokemon's mobile stuff. I loosely play Go. I tried playing Masters and couldn't get into it. This TCG app looks very enticing to me, because I have been meaning to get into for a while, but the thing that's been holding me back has been the financial aspect. So being able to get 2 free packs a day sounds incredible, really awesome. I mean, like I love games like Slay the Spire and Inscription, that are deck builders. So TCG is definitely something that's interesting to me, and hopefully this gives me an opportunity to get into it. But yeah,
Plus, it looks gorgeous.
yeah, it does look really cool.
And I think to add to that, one of the things that I love about this app, and I think I'm a big fan of DNA from the Pokemon Masters game. It is one of the few actual mobile games that has kept me for as long as I've been playing it. And I feel like this might be a DNA direction, but the fact for more immersive art and aspects in the TCG itself really has me interested in this. I feel like Pokemon has some of the best art in TCG to begin with. That's, that's a very divisive thing depending on how people feel, but they often knock it out of the park. So if I can have an app that allows me to explore that and get a more immersive spot, I have to give them kudos on that, because I feel like that's going to keep a lot of people around, especially as people get new art and cards.
Yeah, I forgot to mention, because you even asked me about it. I forgot to say anything about Dina being the ones developing it. Before Pokemon Masters, even the first Dina game, DNA, however you say it, the first game of theirs I ever played was Final Fantasy Record Keeper, which I played literally until the day service ended for it. And they are, in my opinion, pretty unique among mobile developers. I've played 2 of their games very extensively, and neither of those games felt pay to win. They had microtransactions that you'd expect, but at no point did I ever feel like I needed to spend money to enjoy their games.
Well, and I think that's a great point. I'll spotlight Pokemon Masters in our conversation right now, partly because I know this is not officially revealed, but it does kind of have to do with the 4.5-year anniversary. And one thing I do want to give DNA or Dina, however they are pronounced, spotlight is in the last several months they have done a really great job in bringing in new trainers, Pokemon that are like Pokemon Go's been doing this for a while, bringing in Pokemon that are not necessarily as popular. Um, and I feel like bringing in Gita is a bold move, but I think it's one that I know it's one I have a lot of respect for DNA to actually do, because she's not the most popular, but they've actually backed her up with a really solid kit. If you've seen the reveal, and I want to check in really quickly. Fitzy, I know you just praised DNA, but Abby, I'll start with you. Do you play Pokemon Masters, and is this a positive trend in your opinion?
So I cannot express how little I care about Masters. It is not a game that I played a little bit at launch, like right at launch, and it was like fine, and then I got to a point where it was like, okay, now I'm no longer playing a game, I am doing Gacha Simulator, and that is when I lost a lot of interest. And that was, like only a few months after release, and I have not touched it since. But I mean, I think it's a I appreciate what they do for the series. Like obviously it's a very big deal. Like they continue to support it in these huge ways. The production value is like really impressive. All that sort of stuff. And so like I'm really happy for the people that like it, that they're getting this like these great waves of content. Like the 6-month anniversaries are like these huge events every time, which is really like kind of remarkable for a game of like this style, and one that's been running as relatively long for a mobile game as this one has. So yeah, I think Gita is good in sort of branching into I don't want to say obscure because that's the wrong word, but some slightly more interesting Gen 9 characters. I hope that trend continues because Gen 9 has some of the best characterization in the series, and so seeing them in this medium of Masters where they can really interact with the rest of the cast in a more fleshed out way, I think is going to be very cool. But yeah, that's kind of all I have to say about that.
Well, and I think it's good to have people in the conversation who are not interested in the game but can appreciate it. I'll be honest with you. I completely can appreciate your commentary on Gotcha Simulator, especially as they've amped up more sync pairs. I think that's one of the main complaints right now is sometimes they produce so many gotcha characters, it's kind of hard to keep up, especially if you're whaling the game. Um, it, it's a huge financial aspect if you're not, like, especially if you are trying to get every sync pair. Um, but I very much appreciate that. Fitzy, do you have anything else you want to add?
I'm just kind of surprised that they went with Gita. I like Gita. I have strong opinions about her, and I think a lot of the criticism of her is overblown. Um, but there are so many memorable characters in Scarlet and Violet. I'm just kind of surprised that they went with a character who's a little more polarizing. Like just as an example, to the best of my knowledge, Larry's not in the game yet, and like I think that dude has more memes about him than any other character in Pokemon, and he's only existed for a few years now.
And just for listeners and people of the cast, if you didn't catch it, Archaic, Storm Aura, and I had a great time joking about Larry and how he could be utilized in Pokemon Masters EX. We went from everything to him getting like an Easter outfit just for the sake of memes, to him getting 2 sync pairs in like 2 months to play on the fact that he's constantly overworked. Um, and we even had a ton of fun discussing the possibility of Gita. But I know Archaic and Storm Aura were really kind of surprised that we got Iono so early in kind of a throwaway event. I know a lot of people may not feel that way, but with Iono being so popular, I know there was commentary on why didn't they get her at the 4.5 year anniversary. Um, and honestly, I have to agree, Fitzy. I'm glad we're getting Gita. I feel like Gita was definitely not the most used champion ever, but I feel what makes Gita special is her team. I feel like part of the. I mean, I've seen lots and lots of commentary on how Gita's team is actually really overpowered when you use her right, like her team right. And I've heard a lot of commentary on, King's Gambit being, absolutely broken competitively at one point, or still, I don't actually know, I'm not competitive. But I'm actually really happy that we got Glenmora, because that is a Pokemon that I find absolutely fascinating.
I love
And
Lamora.
yeah, it's such a cool design, and it's really cool to see that they got her and they brought in Gamora and made her an absolute beast from everything I've seen. Um, and I could gush on Pokemon Masters all day long. I'm gonna kind of cut us off here, but um, one of the next things I was kind of surprised, especially, and I'll highlight the first one I think is going to be more popular in this chat. But how do we feel about Pokemon Unite? I'm not a big player, but I know they added in some really cool mons as a announcement, specifically with Miraidon. If I'm remembering the Pokemon right, how do we feel about that?
Okay, this is my time. I am a Unite fan, so I have some strong feelings about this. Um, so the three things they announced were, I believe it was Miraidon, Phalanx, and Ceruledge, were the three things. With Miraidon coming very soon, Phalanx in, I believe, April, and then Ceruledge sometime after that. I just saw in the chat Zacian 2.0, and yeah, I do have a bit of a concern that Miraidon is going to be a little game breaking. They tend to do that with the legendaries. Zacian was ridiculous. Both of the Mega Mewtwo's were crazy when they launched. Zeraora, like at the very launch of the game, was also very powerful. So I'm a little worried about it from a game balance perspective. But from just a pure, like, this is a Pokemon they're adding, I'm really excited for it. I think it has a lot of interesting potential there. Phalanx, is another just great one to kind of have here. I appreciate that Unite allows us to kind of highlight some of the more obscure and weird Pokemon. And Phalanx kind of rides that line. It's like semi-obscure, but it's like one step removed from like one of the pretty popular ones. And then Ceruledge, like, obviously that makes perfect sense. It's a great fit for, like, a game of this style. Ceruledge is insanely popular. It's just a cool Pokemon, so I'm good with all of that. The only other thing I would want to highlight with Unite is this was another instance of stuff being leaked beforehand. I believe, yeah, Phalanx and Ceruledge both were leaked, like, a good few weeks out from this presentation, so that kind of lessened that impact. Especially because I feel like I've really well insulated myself from a lot of leak talk. But Unite is one of those ones that kind of slips through the cracks. I think mostly because like new characters coming isn't actually that big of a deal in terms of like announcement value, but that is also something that kind of affected this announcement to an extent.
And I'm not even someone who plays Unite really all that much at all. And I will agree with you, the Pokemon Unite leaks are really hard to miss. They pop up everywhere from what I've seen. And that's actually something that I have a little bit of a problem with a lot of, and I can get into this. We will get into this in another point. But like the leaks community, I feel like I try to steer as far away from as possible as well. I like to experience things in the moment. But before we jump into leaks, Fitzy, you have any opinions on the Pokemon Unite news?
Well, just as Abby said, this is her moment to really jump in there. This is my moment to say I've never played the game. So I don't have a lot of thoughts. The only one I have is that Unite does the I don't remember what they call it, the costumes for the Pokemon. And the fact that they've announced Phalanx makes me really excited to see what kind of costumes they come up for those 6 little guys.
And I think that's one thing I do want to ask, Abby, since you play the game, speaking previously on gotcha simulators and other paid aspects, I'd love to touch on what do you feel about Pokemon Unite's paid options?
So I don't care a whole lot about how they do it. It doesn't bother me. It's a pretty unintrusive system, all things considered, which I appreciate. Uh, One thing that is rough is I believe it's held items that can pretty drastically affect how these Pokemon play, and you have to level them up, and that's one of the big things that you can spend actual money on. And that's tricky because it actually affects your Pokemon's performance even after you have already obtained it, which is obviously another spot where you can spend that money. But I think cosmetics are a great use of in-app purchases and microtransactions. Uh like I wish there was a way to earn them in game also, but I appreciate that, like, okay, that's one of those things, like, sure. I like I bought I have bought a couple HoloWares in my time. Believe specifically the Emmett suit for Trevenant, which is very funny that exists. But I appreciate that it's just like little cosmetics and things that are like that. And then buying the Pokemon like is a little rough, but it's not that big of a deal because those are ones that you can still earn through normal gameplay, and so that's fine. One thing they have shifted to semi recently that I'm much less of a fan of is Pokemon new Unite licenses only being available via gems for, I believe it's the first week or so that they're available. So for the first week that these Pokemon are out, the only way to get them is to spend real money, which I think is not great. And that was something they have only recently started doing. That was not the case at launch. So that is not my favorite, but it's also only a week. And I play, but I don't play that often, so it's not a huge deal for me. But That is something I definitely wish they would do less of.
I think that's definitely fair as well. Again, I don't play the game. I personally have stated I'm not a big fan of all of Pokemon Masters Gotcha. I think it's kind of inevitable in most games. But one thing I'd love to touch on, especially with Ceruledge, and this is something that I find really interesting because Archaic had actually pushed the idea that there might be a Pokemon Horizons tie-in to Pokemon Masters, and we don't necessarily have to necessarily talk about that. But Pokemon Go did get a tie-in to Pokemon Horizons with Liko, Roy, and other characters, as well as Captain Pikachu and Ceruledge popping in. Again, I'm not the biggest Pokemon Go fan. I think it's a great game, very similar to what Abby said about Pokemon Masters. There's a lot of features I really love. I love that they're bringing in new Pokemon, doing these things. But I think I love the idea of bringing in Liko and Roy and all these things, but I find it a little odd that they would announce that now, simply because I believe that that is a nod to future tie-ins to like things like Pokemon Masters and other games. But does anyone have any opinions of this Pokemon Horizons reveal to Pokemon Go?
So I like what they're doing with kind of tying in Go to other Pokemon media. I think every time they've done that, it's been great. With like Meltan and Gimmighoul, especially the two big ones that come to mind with like kind of crossover type events. Um, and so I like that they're doing something with Horizons. I think the anime is kind of underrepresented in a lot of not in the franchise as a whole, but in a lot of these presentations specifically, because honestly, I mean, mostly there's just not a lot to talk about. It just runs as it runs. But so I think getting that in there is nice, especially with this being like the new series and kind of a big anime reboot. Um, One thing that is a little interesting to me is they've gone very heavy on the Gen 9 Pokemon in Go, when they're still pretty light on a lot of Gen 7 and Gen 8 especially Pokemon in that game. Like where I think I'm I'm just like kind of spitballing here. I don't know the exact numbers, but I want to say like we have more Gen 9 Pokemon in Go than Gen 8 already, which doesn't feel like it should be the case. Go really likes to kind of jump around with whatever's topical, independent of where their release schedule is actually at for these generations.
Yeah, Abby, I'll jump in for a second here and just say, as a casual Go player, you are correct. We have more Galar Pokemon or we have more Paldea Pokemon than we have Galar Pokemon. And as KR mentioned in the stats, or in the chat, we still don't have Galar starters, which
Freaking Galar starters.
And then off of that note, Fitzy, do you have any opinions?
The only opinion I have, I'm a very, very casual Go player, by which I mean I play maybe once a month. Because I forget that it exists. But I really like I'm someone who's been a Pokemon fan since day one, since it first came out in America. And one thing that was always weird for me was how different the fandom was, or the fandoms were. Like even back when the anime was not much more than an advertisement for the games, it was very common to find people who knew the anime but didn't know the games, or played the games but had never seen an episode of the anime. Um, and I really like, in the last couple of years of Ash and Pikachu and this first year of Horizon, first 2 years, beginning of Horizons, um, the idea of making sure that all the different aspects of the franchise, like, show respect to the other aspects. You don't have to be an anime fan to be excited about Liko and Roy being in the game, but I think it's important as an overall brand for the games to recognize that, yeah, Horizons is here and it's from all accounts pretty good.
And I do feel like, just to add to that, I think part of the reason I feel like they're adding Liko and Roy into Pokemon Go is actually, well, first of all, I think it's very smart for what has been said already of it being a way to cross pollinate, get new fans, get excitement going. But I also wonder, I mean, Pokemon Go is a massively successful mobile game, more so than I think most people ever thought it would be. And in that, I love one of the things I've always loved about Pokemon Go, is the amount of people who are like in their 60s or 70s that have never played Pokemon and are just out walking, catching like a Pikachu or something. And they know what it is, and they know like all these Pokemon names. And I feel like that's like one of the best parts of Pokemon Go, at least when I played. And I feel like introducing Liko and Roy is a great way to get younger players interested in Pokemon Go, but also have that connection between different ages. Pokemon Go, in my opinion, has always done things a bit, awkwardly with certain implementations, but I think I'm hoping that it will bring younger and older players of the game together in new ways. It's something I could gush on, but really quickly before we get to, and I feel it's going to be a bigger part of the section, I just want to touch on the fact really quickly, Pokemon Cafe also got a new reveal, I believe, let me double check, it should have, which I believe they also got, of course my phone is being stubborn, but Pokemon Go, there, okay, well, I can't log in for some reason, but Cafe got some news as well. I'm not a big player of Pokemon Cafe. I love the fact that it's like a simple, kind of almost seemingly inspired by Troze kind of game. And I mean, I'll open it up. I definitely want to move on to some of the bigger aspects here in a moment, but does anyone have any discussion you want to talk on for Pokemon Cafe?
So I actually just rewatched that snippet. It doesn't even really look like they announced anything. It's truly baffling to me that this still exists and is getting talked about in the same capacity as something like Go. Like they had very similar amounts of runtime in this presentation, which is hilarious because I don't know a single person who actively plays this game. But like I know there has to be that audience somewhere or they wouldn't keep supporting it. So I'm honestly like I would love to see the stats on it just because it's truly fascinating to me that it keeps getting brought up when it seems to not be that big of a deal. Like it seems like they want it to be more of a thing than it is, and that's why they keep kind of showing it off.
So I do have access to something. I don't know if it was officially revealed, but as of today, Sprigatito, Fuecoco, and Quaxley are in the game, and they've done a couple updates involving Quagsire and Jirachi, the Wishing Star. Again, doesn't look like a whole lot, but it does look like they've done some things. I also noticed Pokemon has done a couple subtle reveals leading up to this, and I do wonder if it was partly like we can't officially call it the Pokemon Presents quality stuff, or we don't have time, depending on what your opinions are. But I feel like, especially with the reveal of the second season of Pokemon Concierge, that's something I would have expected to have seen, but that was revealed before this. Yeah, is there anything anyone else wants to add on Pokemon Cafe?
I just one thing I will add is I do appreciate that they keep showing it off, even for like as little as they do, just because I love the art style of this game. Like it's really great, and I wish it was in a game that was more interesting, so I could actually like interact with it more often. But like all the Pokemon they add are great. Like all their designs are fantastic. I love seeing the trailers just for like all the new like all the new Pokemon in this art style. I think it's really really well done in that regard. Presentation is one thing that it definitely has going for it. Even if I think the gameplay is less of less so.
I will also agree. I think one thing that has me checking the Pokemon Cafe updates is the art style. It is immensely charming in my opinion. But yeah, really quickly, what I think is going to take up a lot of our conversation uh, is, and I'm going to reference it because I always want to say Pokemon AZ because of the character AZ, as I mentioned before the chat, but Pokemon Legends ZA. This was, I think, no one was expecting this. There was like I don't think anyone has. I don't know. It could be a while since I personally have been as confused leading up to this being revealed. Not that I am not excited, but one of the things I do want to touch on, just because it seems to be such a central aspect of the current state of Pokemon leading up to this, did either of you watch or read any leaks involving the next game? Was this something you tried to steer as clear from as possible? And if you did or didn't, how do you feel like that impacted the reveal of this game?
Um, I just have to say, because it literally just scrolled up on the chat, the idea that basically every leaker was wrong. I do my best to avoid the whole leak culture thing. It's not something I personally approve of. But that is just me personally. I'm not a crusader or anything. But the fact that every single leaker said Unova or Johto, Unova or Johto, and I didn't see. I saw a couple people predict something Kalos related, but none from the big like quote unquote official leakers said it, and all of them were caught off guard by it. And as someone who disapproves of leak culture, that just made me so happy.
I definitely have to agree there. I personally feel like leaks are leading to a lot of misconception in the Pokemon fandom. Not always in the worst possible ways, but I feel like it leads to a lot of frustration in fans, which I think is part of why I don't pay attention to them. Um, Again, I've said this before, chat. I've seen a couple things with the touching on Reshiram and Zekrom, and I've seen people say, I personally feel like, if it's true, at the very least, it has to do with the Frou-Frou puzzle and, potential ties to Unova there. But, before I dive in too much, Abby, what do you think about the leaks and leading up to this?
So I'm also someone who attempts to avoid leaks as much as possible. But there were some like I didn't see anything specific, but there were a bunch of people just kind of generally musing about it in especially some of our Discord channels, without kind of giving away specifics. And I don't know. I think it's just a little annoying to me that like somehow aren't leaks aren't seen as spoilers. Because they really are. And for some reason, like I think a lot of people are just like more okay with them, which is bizarre to me. Like I would much rather see see a game like revealed how how the trailer was meant to be in this, as opposed to like seeing someone post about it on Twitter. Like that, I don't know. I I have a hard time understanding what the appeal of following leaks is. So it's bizarre to me. So in that sense, I do appreciate that. Like, okay, the leakers were wrong, and so kind of everyone got to reveal or got to experience this live. Because a lot of my fun also is seeing how other people react to it, and if everyone's just like, oh well, this got leaked beforehand, so like I was excited then, but like we already knew about it now. Like that kind of deflates a lot of the enjoyment of these like big announcement days, especially like Pokemon Day is like the biggest day of the year for Pokemon fans. Like it's when we get like the big stuff for the year, and so it's uh it's a little sad to see some of that stuff leak. So I was glad that we didn't have to deal with that this time around, at least for the main games. Obviously, talking about like Unite and some of the other stuff, a lot of that was data mined and leaked beforehand, but that's less of a big deal compared to the big main series reveals, in my opinion.
I definitely agree. One of the things I do want to touch on, so we've touched on leaks, and I have a few ending. Well, we've got some time before we end, so I really want to focus on a couple things. First thing being, I know this wasn't officially on our discussion, but based on that, Fitzy, since you did not go this last time, I just want to ask you, what was that moment like? Um,
When
getting
they
to
revealed it?
getting to experience the trailer in that moment.
I gotta tell you, I lost my mind when it popped up. I am. Let's go with infamous. I'm infamous in the Bulba Garden Discord for being one of the biggest fans of XY and Kalos. They're my favorite games. And I think every Pokemon Day since XY came out, I have jokingly said, "Hey, let's get some more XY stuff." Because I love those games, and I was very strongly in the camp of a new Johto game. I Abby and I have actually talked about it so many times in the last year, um, hoping for a Let's Go Johto game, which didn't pan out, at least as of today. But when the trailer aired, and I'd heard all the leaks, and I'd heard the Gen 2, the Gen 5 stuff. When the trailer aired, and they pulled that piece of tape off the word Lumiose, I freaked out. I just started chanting Kalos in the Discord channel for discussing um, the Pokemon Presents. I honestly, I could not and cannot be happier.
It's so cool to hear. Abby, what was that moment like for you?
So I am probably the second biggest Kalos fan behind Fitzy. So we really got a good group together for this specific reveal even before we knew it was happening. Um, but so yeah, I so honestly the first thing that tipped me off was like the first thing that I was excited about was like, oh, Furfrou is here. Because that was one of the big things, one of the big Pokemon that we were still missing from the Switch generation. So I was like, okay, that's exciting to see. And that'll fix a lot of, the GTS issues and that kind of thing too, where people are annoying about Furfrou. And so I saw that and like, okay, cool. Because at this point, like, it was still very hard to tell what was happening. Although I could pretty confidently tell that it wasn't Johto. I knew that much, obviously. And so that really kind of left that wide open. And I actually didn't really piece it together until I it really kind of clicked when I saw Prism Tower like fully with that Talonflame shot swooping into the sky. And then obviously that like title card Pokemon Legends Z. I also fully thought it was going to be Legends AZ, because that would make sense. But I think they kind of wanted to capitalize on like the finally Pokemon Z kind of thing. So that was exciting. And honestly, I said this in the Discord as well. It was like we were all like around Scarlet and Violet, we were like, oh well, it would make so much sense to have a Kalos DLC. And then they announced Kitakami and Blueberry Academy, and we were like, oh well, I guess not then. And then we got this today, so it like Kalos was coming, we just didn't know it, and kind of I think a lot of us forgot about it after the first wave of DLC was announced. So that was kind of a nice full circle. Like Paldea really has been kind of this crossover gen with so many other regions, and I think that's been a really fun thing about it. So I'm very excited.
I love that. And I do want to check, Caps, because we all saw your response to we were all waiting at one point for you to finish watching the trailer, all being like excited but not saying. Do you want to give what that experience was like for you, Caps?
Yeah, sure. So we had a chat set up for preparing this Bulbacast, and we were all watching the presents this morning, and I was a little bit behind because I had some stuff to do for work, and and they started talking, and I was like, guys, no, I'm still in the mobile reel. So I essentially I was like, okay, something big is coming. And yeah, honestly, I am really surprised, but frankly, very, very excited for all of this. I, like many, thought we were probably going to get Johto specifically, not necessarily Unova, since they did touch on Unova in the DLC or Scarlet and Violet a little bit. But yeah, it was a really cool reveal. I like the way that they showed like the blueprints and whatnot, and kind of had you go almost like Pokemon view into the city as to what it's going to be or whatever. And it looks really cool, and I'm really excited to see what they're going to do with it. I know that there are some people who have a bit of concern over some of the stuff that was said after the fact in some of the tweets and YouTube descriptions about this being solely in Lumio City, and maybe we'll talk about that in a little bit. But I think that I'm just going to let Game Freak cook. I think they've got something up their sleeve. I think it's going to be really cool, and I'm really, really happy for Fitzy and Abby and all the rest of the Kalos stands that we're finally going to get another adventure in Kalos. And you know what? Like, even though I'm not the biggest fan of XY, you cannot admit, or you cannot deny that I do feel like Kalos, out of all of the regions, got the short end of the stick when it comes to development time and whatnot, and what they had to do to get those games out on time. So I'm very excited to kind of, with a full development cycle, see what they can do.
And I love that as well. I'm real quick going to give my reaction. I'll make it short and sweet, but I will say, so I am a really big fan of the 3DS era of Pokemon games. I know I'm not always with a ton of people, at least from what I hear a lot of times online, in saying that I absolutely adore Alola. It's one of my favorite regions because of what they did with the culture and the colors and things. Oras is a really solid remake, and X and Y are good games. They have a lot, and I will agree, very unfinished stuff. There was a lot going on in there that I wish we had gotten more. But I think two things really clicked in my mind when I saw this trailer, other than the general excitement and surprise, was one, I had a moment of joy and surprise that I haven't felt in a long time in a Pokemon reveal. It very much kind of transported me to that idea of being younger and having genuine anticipation and confusion on what's coming. But the other thing for me is this mentality that yes, the Legends games seem to be their own thing. Pokemon's trying a lot of new ideas, but it really felt like to me that this was more proof that the Pokemon company is willing to listen to fans. Like, it's been a long time since X and Y, but it really seems like they are trying to implement ideas the fans actually want. And I'll touch on this with everyone in a moment, but the fact that it's 2025, there has been no other mainline game. Archaic mentioned this several times in the predictions cast, that the Pokemon Company had expressed a desire to slow down, to not do a new game every year. And if that's the case, I may be on the outside of this, but I'm so excited for that. Because if they can give us Pokemon, and I just wanted to say AZ so bad, Pokemon ZA or Z2A or however you pronounce it, the time and the love that it truly deserves for the Kalos fans, I'm here for it. Because I have a massive game catalog, and I do not want to feel the pressure of having to buy another Pokemon game this year. But with that, I would love to check in with Abby and Fitzy. What are your thoughts in this moment of, like, do you think there is potential we may go a year without a mainline Pokemon game?
I think that is possible. You by a year you mean like a full, like, not just like a calendar year, because obviously we're not getting anything 2024, but like full year. Because I think that is possible. I think it's unlikely. My guess is that actually I'll just talk about kind of the release timing of this in general for a second, if that's cool. I I find it very interesting that they just say 2025, and not any more specific, because I believe even Legends Arceus was like early 2022, was how they phrased it. And so I think they're giving themselves that wiggle room to kind of quietly delay it if they need to, as opposed to like announcing. Because okay, maybe it was planned for, like, let's say January 2025. They realize, okay, we need more time, push it to, I don't know, April or whatever. And they have the flexibility to do that now, which I think is good. The other thing I want to touch on is I don't think this is as much extra development time as people think it is. They're like, oh, no Pokemon game in 2024. They're gonna be spending all this extra time on it. If you think about it, Legends came out early 2022 with kind of that with the Daybreak update coming a few months after that. So that is, if it comes out kind of early 2025, like we're thinking, like I'm kind of expecting, that's a 3-year development cycle, which is the standard for their games. That was what Legends Arceus had. That's what a lot of their games have. So I think a lot of people are being tricked by the release year and not fully thinking about what it actually means. But on the other hand, I think it's also very likely that the pandemic and all of that really affected how much work they were able to do on these developments. And so now, post-pandemic, that 3-year development cycle is going to feel like more because they had the resources and time to put more into it.
I think that's completely valid. Fitzy, what are your thoughts?
I'm gonna say no. And then I will explain why. Real quick, because he has joined the chat, let me say hi to Quagsire Joe, because I feel like he'll be upset if I don't say hi to him on the stream that he dropped in to watch. And then I'm going to say, I'm going to go back to the really crazy, stupid prediction I made at the very top of the Bulbacast. The idea that maybe they're announcing the upcoming games out of order. I do remember a few years ago when we had BDSP followed by Legends Arceus. I remember a big problem that year was we had a long marketing season leading up to BDSP and not a whole lot to say about BDSP. I'm not going to sit here and criticize BDSP mainly because I'm a massive fan of the game. I thought it was a lot of fun, but not a lot was added. A remake, by its very nature, is not going to have as much to talk about as a brand new game or a different style game like a Legends game. And it kind of makes me wonder because we often get a presents in the summer, like early summer, where they'll like touch up on some new things and give us updates on what was talked about on Pokemon Day. And it kind of makes me wonder, with the mixed up unknown and all of the Johto hints and all of the Unova hints we've had the last couple years, if there is a remake in the works for the end of the year and they're just waiting to announce it because there's honestly not a lot to say, and they learned their lesson from the BDSP marketing cycle. I personally agree with you, Rhodey, and also with Abby, that I would love for them to slow down a little bit. Not too much because I need my Pokemon fix. I'm an addict. But I would like them to slow down a little bit. I just don't know if they will. And I do think it's possible that there is enough time in 2024 for them to announce a remake. Not a full brand new game, but I do think there's enough time for a remake that will come out in the holiday season.
Brody, do you mind if I jump in here as well?
Please.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, Fitzy. I definitely don't want them to, but I think they will announce something else coming later this year. I don't think it's going to be a full year without a mainline Pokemon game. However, I think that if they're going to announce anything this year, you're right. I think it's going to be a remake. I think it's going to be Unova remakes. And the reason that I think that is because, and I know we talked a little bit about leakers earlier. One of the prominent leakers regarding a lot of the Nintendo Direct stuff leaked or said that they had heard something about a new Unova game being outsourced, which immediately brings to mind Ilka and BDSP and all that. So and granted that didn't come true in this presents, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. So I do think that's a possibility. And I definitely see what you're saying, Fitzy, with regards to there's a lot of time before Legends comes out. We only have the 2025 release window. We don't have any sort of concrete release date or even a season. So that can be January, and it could be December, right? So we got plenty of time for them to announce something else. And maybe it's just not ready yet, or maybe you're right. Maybe there's not much that they announce that they need to announce ahead of time because it's just a remake. But I definitely see that as a possibility. I don't know if that's going to happen, but I do think that we will end up getting something mainline this year. Even if it's just NSO, like releasing the old games on NSO, Gens 1 and or 2. I do think that there is a distinct possibility. Again, that being the caveat, of course, Game Freak is gonna have their time to develop Legends. I hope that all made sense. I was a little rambly there, but whatever.
Yeah. I'm actually going to pop in one more thing on kind of release date. I very much agree with the whole marketing thing. And actually, I think we might even still have that issue with Legends, this upcoming game, in just the fact that, like, we have maybe more than a year between the reveal of this game and its release. And Pokemon has notoriously had some pretty slow marketing cycles in the past, just because of their necessary announcements in February for like November releases. Like those are pretty slow. So I think it'll be interesting to see how they play that out. One other thing that I wanted to mention, is that, and this ties into some broader rumors. Is I think we aren't getting anything this year because this game was originally scheduled for this year and got pushed back to coincide with the next Nintendo console, which was originally kind of rumored to be coming late this year and has recently gotten pushed back to Q1 2025. So I think there might be something there as well.
Well, and I should also note in that, not necessarily to contradict, but to point out, Archaic also had mentioned regarding the possibility of a Switch 2 or whatever the console said, and it actually pointed out that Pokemon Company is notorious for, even if there is a new console out, pushing games on the older console just for the sake of the fact that Pokemon is not traditionally one of the first games on new consoles. And had pointed out like Black and White and Alola and X and I think maybe X and Y, I can't remember. I don't think that one's accurate, but their release does seem to do that. And I think there is a lot of room for this conversation, but I want to make sure that this is a reactions cast and not a theories cast. But I think every point that has been made is absolutely beautiful. One thing, because I definitely don't want us to rush towards the end, I know that we have talked about Pokemon Legends, I keep wanting to say AZ, ZA. We've talked about a lot of things in this, and what I would really love to do is have a series of questions kind of set in that mindset of reaction and what things were like in that pure moment. So one of the things that I would love to start discussing is overall, and we're eventually at some point going to be doing a Pokemon Day retrospective, hopefully, and I'll make sure to touch on this towards the end of the cast because we have some awesome ideas going. But I would really love to start, and I'll definitely go first for this one. It is to discuss like how this experience was for you as a whole, the whole Pokemon Day presents compared to 2023. And I think for the sake of time, it'd be good to keep it a little bit shorter of a response. But I'll demonstrate that by saying I truly believe that this Pokemon Day for me was really special. I think it didn't have the same reaction as last Pokemon Day Presents in 2023, where I was left kind of confused and they had a lot of little mini curveballs. But I have to say, I really do believe that I have that faith as a fan that Pokemon is trying to do some positive changes as a company. And I'm going to leave this open to everyone else, but for the sake of time, I would love it to be a little bit shorter of an answer.
Yeah, so I really like this whole presentation. I like the structure of it. I like how they did kind of the shorter, just kind of more of a sizzle reel of the mobile games, not taking up so much time because that was a common complaint of that kind of dragging. So I like that they shortened that up. They gave some breathing room for TCG Pocket, and then we moved on to kind of that final big reveal. Just as a general fandom thing, in terms of like this whole presentation, I was truly shocked to come out of Presents where basically no one was upset. Everyone seemed to pretty much universally say, okay, that was a good announcement and I'm excited, which has absolutely not been the case for the last few years. So I think that was really, really pleasant, a really pleasant change.
And then Fitzy, do you have anything you want to add?
Compared to 2023, a lot more satisfied. I did miss the creepy, terrifying animatronic Pikachu. I think that should be brought back for every Pokemon announcement ever. But I think there's a big difference, at least for the fans, between an off-year Pokemon Presents or an off-year Pokemon Day and a we expect a new gen Pokemon Day. and this is the first time I've ever really seen the new gen levels of hype after an off year Pokemon day.
Very well said. And Caps, I know that you're running Twitch, but if there's any of these questions you do want to answer, please feel free to jump in. But you do not have to.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to. So for me, I definitely agree. Well, I guess I'll say it. I guess I'll say this. Pokemon Legends was my favorite game. Has been my favorite Pokemon game released in the last 10 years. So seeing a sequel to it automatically makes this one of the better presents that I've witnessed. I agree with Abby on the fandom discussion point. I have not seen anyone like, even if people are upset about not getting the game they want, I feel like there's at least some sort of like kind of universal respect, understanding, and appreciation for what we did get today, which I really like. Yeah, I thought it was a great presentation. I thought it was really well put together. I really like the shorter length. I'm really appreciative of the fact that they didn't spend 75% of the game on existing titles, or 75% of the presents on existing titles, and only 25% was split more 50-50 with a beginning sizzle reel of all of their mobile games, and then obviously the new TCG app revealed, and then Legends ZA. So I thought that was really well done. Yeah.
Wonderful. So the next question I have for you is, I think the answer to this for everyone would probably be the Pokemon Legends ZA trailer. So I would love to ask you, outside of that one, what was your favorite trailer? It could be for any reason outside of Legends ZA in this Pokemon Presents.
I think,
I'll go.
or yeah, go for it.
No, you go ahead.
I think mine would probably be the Sleep trailer. That's one of the games that I do keep up with to an extent. It would be Unite if it wasn't leaked and spoiled for me ahead of time, but I think that it was really well done. I loved how they blended kind of the live action and the Sleep art style, which is another art style I really like. And just announcing legendaries for that game was really exciting. And I'm excited to see how that plays out in the game itself.
I would have to say, for me, it would almost certainly be, since we can't say Legends ZA, probably the TCG mobile app. Like I said when we discussed it, it really has me thinking about when it is like out, getting back into the TCG. And if you had asked me 24 hours ago, or even 12 hours ago, because we are not yet 12 hours from the premiere of the Presents, I would have told you there is TCG would have not even been on my radar. So the fact that it's got me interested in the TCG, I feel like I got to give it a shout out for that.
And I will give mine. So it might be kind of the easy answer for me. I'm a big fan of the current art style that Pokemon Masters is using in their promotional work. I think it's pretty unique and pretty distinctive for the game. But I'm not gonna say that, and I am going to go with I think just in terms of the kind of the aesthetic, I would have to go for the Pokemon Sleep, even though I don't do that. Partly because I just love like the casual Raikou, chilling in someone's house taking a nap. That's, I feel like, so contradictory to what I think of when I think of that giant razor sharp beast. So I feel like that one had the best like visual in my opinion.
I guess I can go as well. Yeah, in terms of visual fidelity, definitely the Pokemon Sleep trailer. If I had to pick a favorite announcement outside of Pokemon Legends ZA, it would be Phalanx in Unite. Yes, Miraidon is cool. Yes, Ceruledge is very cool, but Phalanx is the perfect Unite character. He's just one of those little guys that everyone seems to love, and he just completely fits. If you know anything about the other characters in Unite, like Abby was saying earlier, he completely fits. It's super cool to see Phalanx in Unite. I love it.
Awesome. And then before we wrap up, I have one more question for everyone. It's a little bit of a prediction aspect, but in any of the trailers, moving forward with content, what is your main hope for for the content moving into the games that you like?
Yeah, I'm most so honestly the two big things I keep up with, or well, I guess three, is obviously the main series and then Sleep and Unite. For Sleep, I think they've been doing a really good job with keeping the content going for that, with the new area that dropped semi recently and all the new Pokemon they're adding alongside that. The legendaries, which I assume will be part of bigger events as well. So that's all been handled really well. And if they just keep doing what they've been doing, I will be perfectly happy. Kind of the same thing with Unite. I think it's been really fun to see all the stuff that they're revealing. I truly hope that what they're coming up with soon will not be as game breaking as some of the stuff has been in the past. I hope it's a little more balanced. But honestly, as long as like the stuff they're introducing is fun, that doesn't bother me too much. And then just for the main series, like I think it's very cool that they're doing another Legends game, which seems to be so different from kind of the other stuff. It's kind of proving that Legends isn't just like the past versions of these games. Like it's just kind of their excuse to do something weird with the remake formula. And I think people, if they haven't already, should realize that this is not like a Legends Arceus sequel. It is just like a weird Kalos semi remake, and it probably will not play all that similarly to Legends Arceus in a lot of ways. So, I'm excited for that. I'm excited to see what else they do if it's as much of a weird kind of departure as Arceus was from the main series.
Fitzy, do you have anything you want to add?
So things that I'm hoping for going forward. I was just doing a quick little speed through the presents from this morning, or at least this morning here in America. And I remembered something. I want to deviate away from the games just for a moment, if I can, for the thing I hope for most. And it was at the end of the Pokemon Go announcement with Liko and Roy. They popped up a little thing for Horizons, the series. Watch March 7th on Netflix in the United States. And it reminded me how awful the current localization method of the Pokemon anime is, for those of us who don't speak Japanese and have to wait for an English translation to be able to watch it. And between that and Pokemon TV shutting down, my biggest hope going for 2024 or even later if necessary is for the most valuable franchise in the world to come up with one place where a Pokemon fan can watch the whole Pokemon anime. I shouldn't need 3 different streaming services to watch a season of Pokemon.
I can appreciate that very much. Caps, did you want to add your hope?
Sure, yeah. So specifically speaking about the presents and the stuff that was talked about, um, and kind of what I hope from that, my biggest hope is that Pokemon Legends ZA retains the retains the feeling of Legends Arceus. It doesn't have to be the same story wise. It doesn't have to be set in the past. It can be set in the future, whatever. Right? I don't care as long as it um, keeps that same feeling of, this is someplace but not really, and the gameplay in terms of the open-ended exploration and catching mechanics. That's my biggest hope for this next kind of phase of Pokemon as we continue through Gen 9. I will also echo Poke Delta in chat that Gens 1 and 2 on NSO would be a nice in terms of a hope going forward. But if I had to like pick one thing, it would just be that Legends retains that same kind of style from.
And for me personally, I once again have to parrot Archaic, which I believe Archaic said that Archaic wants to see more dedication to lore. Um, Involving Pokemon Legends ZA, I want to see more of the lore of Kalos. I want to learn more about the lore of Mega Evolutions and the war that happened. I've stated I really hope this is a game that transports us back to the future and the past. It'll be a great way to emphasize Lumios as a setting, and really breathe life into that. Additionally, one thing that I am hoping for with Pokemon Masters, I have to say, with the 4.5 year anniversary coming, they've already done a great job on giving free resources in the last month. They've already given us 3,000 gems just for logging in, but kind of parroting many things that have been said about gacha games in this cast, please kind of make the grind a little bit less when it comes to gems. Give us more free sync pairs. I feel like they've done an amazing job, and DNA can make that happen. We have just a little bit left. So, as everyone does your outro, I have to ask. I feel like this might be a loaded question, but I got inspired in it. I have to ask you, Clodsire or Quagsire? Which is your choice?
Oh, Joe, if you're still listening, I'm really sorry. But I got to go with Clodsire. I love Quagsire. I've loved Quagsire since the first time I ever saw it. It's just a goofy looking dude, and I love the goofy looking Pokemon. But Clodsire is it's just as goofy looking and a lot more useful in a fight.
Yeah, I am a Quagsire fan. However, I am a Paldean Wooper fan. I prefer Paldean Wooper, but Quagsire out of the two. So
Gotta respect it. I personally, I love Quagsire as well, but I feel like, personally, using Clodsire was a lot of fun for me in Paldea, especially watching that derpy boy move around behind me. That was such a joy. I've also got to say, I know it's not the perfect ability, but I love a good chunky boy that can cause poison on contact with his ability Poison Point. That was so much fun to use in my first one. And yeah, Caps, you don't have to. I know you're watching chat, but is there any? Which would you choose?
I'm gonna parrot Kasumi in chat and just say "Porque no los dos."
Well, that wasn't an option.
Yeah. If I had to pick one, it'd probably be Clodsire. I just think he's so cool looking. His mouth is bigger. He looks more friendly.
With that, I just want to say thank you to the amazing cast that we had, Fitzy and Abby. Caps, thank you for handling the Twitch chat. It's super helpful. With that, though, I want to say we are going to do our outro. I want to emphasize, I know everyone did their thing to watch out for on Boba Garden. I do want to emphasize, if you enjoyed this chat, if you enjoyed this cast, please know we are going to be doing more consistent of these. I am going to be hosting more and more, but we're going to have opportunities for other people. There are so many amazing things happening on Bulba Garden, and there are going to be even more. I know that there was talk of projects that can't be mentioned yet, but if you have ideas for the cast, you want to participate in suggesting things, we are more than open to that. And I want to say, on this Pokemon Day, thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. And I hope you have a wonderful night as we begin to wrap. Bye.